Hello and welcome back to this edition of the Safe and Sound Texas Audio Excursion. This is David Bianco. Well, today I'm talking about Tears for Fears, one of my favorite bands for many, many decades, actually. And I happened to see them this past Monday in Austin, Texas. They delivered a great show and played quite a few songs from their most recent album, The Tipping Point. And I picked this album as the best new record of 2022. Really got into it a lot after I settled into it mid-year, and as the year went by, the album even grew on me more. There actually is a version of this that was released at Target stores in the USA that has a 7-inch single with 2 additional songs, and there is a compact disc version, I think it's out of Japan, that actually has a 3rd song that was added as well. So there were like 13 tracks really done for this album, 10 released on the album, and then those additional bonus tracks. So it was a great concert. Of course, they played a lot of their big hits from songs from The Big Chair, which had, of course, Shout and Broken, Head Over Heels, and, of course, Everybody Wants to Rule the World. So it was a great concert. The biggest problem was concert etiquette. Some people were moving in and out in front of us while the band was playing instead of doing it during the breaks between the band talking, and it was really annoying, especially if you're trying to record any of it. But concert etiquette doesn't always work, I guess. But today, more specifically, I'm going to be going back to the beginning, back to the first album of 1983, released by Tears for Fears, called The Hurting. Well, the reason I'm talking about this album is I'm doing a vinyl shootout because a new copy was released and a new pressing by Abbey Road Studios, and it is a half-speed master by Miles Showell. I've had mixed results with Abbey Road, to be honest with you. Some of the products that have come out have been decent, but by and large, I have been disappointed by them. So I say that as a preface, not as a bias, but as a reality check. And so I'm comparing it to the US original, which looks like this. The UK original cover looks like this white. There was a difference between the US and this particular one on the back clearly states digital mastered recording. You see, back in the day, everybody was proud about digital when it came out. It was a big new thing then. And so when your album had it, you put a hype sticker on, or in this case, you actually put it on the record because it was the new best thing that was out there. With CDs coming out, everybody thought this was really going to be the next best thing in terms of sound. And factually speaking, when you get to it and look at this original album and listen to it closely, you notice there's a lot of synthesized and electronic drums on this album, a lot of digitization in that arena, and the mastering, of course, was digital. So it doesn't have quite as rich and warm of a sound as you might have expected to come from something that was done pure analog. But using that digital as a baseline, the original version, and then going now and taking the comparison to the Abbey Road, here's what I found. The Abbey Road had a little bit quieter vinyl, which one might expect with a newer release. It's a little bit thicker. I think it's 180 gram. But when you came down to it, the sound on the Abbey Road was a little more compressed. It had a very narrow kind of sound. The sound stage wasn't as broad, and it really didn't have the life of the original. It was a tad warmer in the sense that the highs weren't quite as high. The lows were about the same. The bottom end was pretty comparable. But I would call the sound narrow. It was just narrow to me. Now, the spatiality of stereo was very similar, but the sound stage was different, as was, in fact, the way it sounded in a vertical sense. And it really opened up some when I played the original back to back against it. So for me, I really enjoyed the original more because it was just a little more lifeful, or having a feeling of fullness compared to the Abbey Road. Now again, it's a little bit of a brighter recording in my opinion, partially because I think the digital steps that are in there. And so I go back to something I've said previously, and that is when one has a sensitivity to highs and doesn't like them as much, they might like maybe the Abbey Road a tad better, but they are going to lose some of that spatiality to it as well. And, you know, that's a little bit problematic to me. So from my perspective, if I'm going to play one, I definitely would keep the OG and keep that one as my go-to copy, because I think it just has a little more openness. And frankly, these kind of recordings, the digital days of the early years of digital, didn't have as much expansion in their sound, in my opinion, unless it was really, really done well and high end. And we have examples of that with The Night Fly by Donald Fagen and Brothers in Arms by Dire Straits. But this seemed more of a vanilla type recording, one that was just done with the equipment and not high ambitions for the highest sound quality. So it's a little bit different of an outcome based on that. I'd say the Abbey Road is decent, but again, given that this from the get-go wasn't the broadest sounding album in the first place, the Abbey Road doesn't help that at all. It diminishes it some, as a matter of fact. So I think you can find these OGs out there for, you know, maybe $18, $20 from what I've seen. It's just that you don't see them a lot. So you make the call. This is readily available, obviously re-released as is, or was, I should say, this version, the 5.1, which comes out when they release these secondarily, or when they're first released, like the Tipping Point. SDE Now, which is a web shop, sell these, and they're high fidelity, pure audio, 5.1 discs. And, you know, if you're going to want one of these, you order it when the notification comes out that the release is accepting pre-orders. So get on SDE Now and set up your notifications so that you can be notified. It's a really fabulous sounding surround recording, and it really is a super deluxe edition in the sense that it's a Blu-ray audio, it has Dolby Atmos, it has 5.1, and it has stereo. But I don't think these are even available anymore. They're probably sold out on their site. So the next one I think to come out is going to be Songs from the Big Chair. So watch for the pre-order of that. And if you want to get the 5.1, you might want to order it. If you order it and the record together, you get a little bit of a discount. So anyway, my opinion is on this particular Shootout that the OG has a bit of an edge because it has a better sound stage, a little less narrow of a sound to it. And because of that, I think it serves a little better than the Abbey Road half-speed master. So those are my thoughts. If you have any input, please let me know. And if you subscribe, please do so by clicking on that subscribe button down below. And if you have a thumbs up or like for me, I'd appreciate that, as any comments. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time when we take our next Safe and Sound Texas audio excursion. Take care, everybody.